Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going straight into one of the most intense periods in business history. We're talking about the 19th century oil wars.
It's an incredible story. You've got these giants, right? John D. Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, Mark Samuel, Royal Dutch, all colliding.
And not with armies, but with, tankers and railroads. It was a full-on global conflict.
It was. But what makes this deep dive so relevant for you, listening right now, is the paradox at the heart of it all. I mean, you look at the sources and you have to ask.
Why? Why were they fighting so savagely over a commodity that was, back then, basically just used for lamps, for light?
Exactly. It seems so small now. But that new light was everything. It was seen as the future itself.
So our mission today is to dig into that. We want to look past the history and pull out 3 timeless laws from that hyper-competitive world.
Laws that absolutely apply to your own life, whether you're trying to get ahead in your career or position your company.
Right. This is about understanding the fundamental rules of competition. The stakes back then were just astronomical.
I mean, people literally risked their lives moving this stuff. And then you had a guy like Rockefeller who genuinely believed he could run the entire world from one small office in the U.S.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Because volatility wasn't just financial, it was literal. The source material has this amazing detail from around 1861.
Oh, about the sailors.
Yeah. Getting the first U.S. oil shipment to Europe was a complete nightmare. No one wanted to get on the ships.
Because they thought it would just explode.
They were terrified of the cargo, so they had to be convinced, and in some cases, literally tricked with alcohol, just to get them on board.
It's just incredible. And what's even more incredible is how quickly that fear turned into this absolute certainty in the power of Standard Oil.
They didn't just dominate the industry, they were the industry.
They reached a level of control that's, well, it's almost impossible to imagine now. At its peak, Standard Oil controlled over 90% of all U.S. oil exports.
90%.
Yeah.
So if you were selling oil anywhere in the world, you were either with them or against them. And fighting them seemed futile.
And that brings us right to our first and maybe the most dangerous lesson. We call it the law of the illusion of power.
So how did that illusion work? It wasn't just about having the most oil, was it?
No, not at all. It was about owning what we'd now call the entire stack, vertical integration. Rockefeller didn't just drill for oil.
He owned everything.
Everything. The refineries, the pipelines, the storage tanks. But his real weapon was the railroads.
The rebates.
The notorious rebates. He got these massive discounts on shipping that his smaller competitors could never, ever get. He essentially rigged the transport system in his favor.
So his power came from controlling the infrastructure, not just the product.
Yeah.
That must have made them feel completely untouchable.
Oh, absolutely. When you believe you control 90% of all movement, you start to believe no one can ever challenge you. And that belief, that arrogance,
No.
That's your greatest vulnerability.
Because while they were obsessed with their U.S. railroad system, a challenger was rising in a place most people couldn't even find on a map.
Baku, in the Russian Empire.
Baku was a total shock to the system, wasn't it?
A complete shock. Suddenly, this region, which was famous for its eternal fires where oil just seeped out of the ground, starts pumping out massive amounts of crude oil.
And it was financed by some very serious players. The Nobel brothers, the Rothschilds.
And that's a key point. The Rothschilds brought in this huge global financial network to challenge an industrial monopoly. They focused on building reliable infrastructure in Russia, like a railway to the Black Sea.
Which immediately started chipping away at Standard Oil's grip on Europe.
Exactly. And that's the core of Rule 1. Your biggest challenger often isn't a bigger version of you. It's someone who sees the blind spots your success has created. While Rockefeller was focused on U.S. trains, they were building a new system on another continent.
They were secretly preparing, as the source says, studying the weak points.
The moment you get arrogant, the moment you stop learning because you think your way is the only way, someone is out there building the thing that will make you obsolete.
That arrogance just creates a vacuum.
A vacuum that challengers in Baku and people like Marcus Samuel and Kessler were more than happy to fill.
Which is the perfect setup for our second law. The next part of the war wasn't about who had the most oil, but who could get it to the market best.
This is a huge shift. We're moving from raw strength to strategic positioning. And this is, the law of advantage is position, not strength.
So we see Standard Oil, with all its power, all its money, start losing ground in Asia, which was the fastest growing market.
Yeah.
Why did their strength fail them there?
Geography. It all came down to geography. Their whole system was built to ship barrels on huge steamships.
Which meant going all the way around Africa to get to Asia.
A long, expensive, and dangerous journey. They were powerful, but they were in the wrong place. Russia was closer, but it's basically landlocked.
So whoever solved that logistics puzzle would win. And that brings us to, I think, the most amazing character in this whole story, Marcus Samuel.
You can't make it up. He started out selling seashells in London.
Seashell.
But he was the one who saw the real problem. The bottleneck wasn't the oil, it was the barrels. Wooden barrels were leaky, dangerous, and took up a ton of space.
So he didn't invent a new product. He invented a new delivery system.
A completely new method of transport. He orchestrated this massive coup. He pioneered the modern oil tanker, a ship designed to carry oil in bulk, not in barrels, and, crucially, designed to be safe enough to pass through the newly opened Suez Canal.
The Suez Canal. That was the ultimate shortcut. How big of an advantage did that give him over Rockefeller?
It was revolutionary. Bulk transport was already cheaper, but the canal, that meant he could skip the whole trip around Africa. It cut weeks off the journey and slashed costs.
So he proved that the winner isn't the one with the most resources.
It's the one in the right place at the right time who dares to change the whole approach.
It's the difference between strength, like having the most money, and position owning the most efficient path to the customer.
And that opened the door for other players, too. You have to mention Royal Dutch in Sumatra.
Right, they weren't even playing the same game at first. They were focused on this waxy, paraffin-rich oil in the Dutch East Indies.
Oil that Standard Oil had completely dismissed as inferior. Their refineries were built for a specific type of American crude, so they were too rigid to adapt.
So Royal Dutch's position wasn't just geographical, it was also technical, a niche.
Exactly. They started with that little waxy pond, but their location and their expertise let them build a foothold in Asia that eventually made Standard Oil tremble. Position can be a niche.
Okay, so we've got the illusion of power, and we've got position over strength. Now for the invisible battleground, consumer psychology.
This is maybe the most relevant law for you today. It's the law of who controls the story controls the market. This war wasn't just won at sea, it was won in people's minds.
It's not like pure marketing, perception being more important than the actual product.
In many cases, yes. Standard Oil were masters at this. When Russian oil started flooding Europe, what did they do?
They started rumors.
Immediately. Calculated rumors. They told everyone Russian kerosene was smelly, it was dangerous, it was just inferior. It didn't even matter if it was true.
They attached a negative story to the competition. And on the flip side, the Nobels, who are their big rivals there.
The Nobels used science. They used their credibility and their advanced refining techniques and shouted about it from the rooftops to build trust. They got the right authorities to say their oil was safe.
But the most amazing example of this comes back to Marcus Samuel in Asia. He had the logistics, but he also controlled the brand. Why was changing the color of his tin cans so important?
This is just brilliant market psychology. Standard Oil used these drab, boring cans. Samuel realized that in many Asian markets where literacy wasn't widespread, trust was built through visuals, through color and recognition.
So what did he do?
He put his oil in these bright, eye-catching red, white, and blue cans. They stood out. They looked premium, they looked modern, and they built an incredibly powerful brand identity without a single word.
That's the power of perception. A small aesthetic choice completely changes the game. For anyone trying to build a personal brand today, that's the lesson right there.
It absolutely is. Your story and how you package it can be more powerful than your raw talent.
So what is the deepest lesson here? When you pull all three of these laws together, what does this whole saga teach us?
The synthesis is, you can never confuse your current strength with permanent power. And opportunity is almost always hiding where people are showing disdain.
Right. They look down on the waxy crew, the seashell seller, the difficult logistics.
And their dismissal created the opening for everyone else.
But the ultimate lesson, as the source material really drives home, is internal. It says, the biggest oil war is the war against the limitations within oneself.
And that's the truth. Rockefeller built the perfect system for his time, but he became a prisoner of it. He couldn't pivot when the rules changed.
So Standard Oil didn't fail because they ran out of money or oil?
They failed because of arrogance. Because they refused to believe that a tanker ship or some waxy crude from Sumatra could ever truly threaten their model.
And on the other side, the winners, Samuel, Nobel, Kessler, they were all dismissed at first. But they won because they were constantly learning, constantly adapting. They never stood still.
They knew that self-innovation is the only thing that lasts. If you're rigid, a flexible opponent will eventually find a way to break you.
Which brings us to our final challenge for you, the listener. It's drawn straight from this history. If you want to outperform others in a world that's changing this fast,
You have to do the thing they look down on.
and if you want a real breakthrough,
You have to look where no one dares to look. Find that difficult problem, that weird niche, that detail everyone else thinks is irrelevant.
in a world changing faster than ever before, the person who focuses on self-innovation, on constantly evolving their methods, their position, and their story, is the one who will always, always have the advantage.
That is the ultimate takeaway.
So we want you to look at this history, not just as a business lesson, but as a mirror for your own life. Find your self-imposed limits. Find that opportunity everyone else is ignoring. That's the new light you need to chase.